Hey, so this is my first ever radio repair on YouTube. I've been doing lots of sort of radio repairs on the side on microblogging sites like Twitter back when I had that, Instagram, and now Blue Sky. I'm not an expert, I'm constantly learning. It's a learning process where I'm teaching myself almost every day. I'm better than I used to be several years ago, but I'm not perfect, so I may make mistakes or do things that aren't necessarily, I guess, the way you might do stuff. But ultimately, hopefully this video proves educational in some way, or at least enjoyable, while I do my first ever repair. It's all over the place in terms of pacing, because I didn't really know how to edit and film this in the best way, especially because I've not been on YouTube for a little while. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and here it is. Hey, welcome to the channel. This is my first radio repair on the channel, or at least the first filmed one. This is not my radio, this is belonging to someone who sent this in and wanted me to take a look at it. So one of the things the client was describing was the radio just didn't turn on. It literally did nothing. They'd try and turn it on and it would do nothing. So what were my steps to having a look at this thing and seeing if it does in fact work and what we can do with it? One of the biggest hurdles was actually doing the wiring loom, which we'll talk about very shortly. I also apologise if there's random noises going on in the background, because next door they're doing some renovation work, so there's some strange jump cuts and some weird noises. I apologise. But without further ado, let's take a look at this radio and see what all my usual troubleshooting steps are in this case. So what have we got here? We've got a Pioneer KPH-4830, very nice looking radio from, if I had to guess, the mid to late 1980s. It's got FM, medium wave, long wave, separate bass and treble, very nice. A loud button, not sure what NS is, I'll put it in the video if I find out what that is. A metal 70 microseconds bias switch, and a mono switch for FM mono. If you've got a weak signal, you can press mono, and it'll stop any of the weird in and out stereo effects that can happen on weaker signals. Anyway, this is an auto reverse deck, as we can see there. It is a, there you go, you can see it says it's a 20 by 20 watt amplifier, so we know it's a 2x 20 watt, which is quite good for the time. Not too bad at all, especially because a lot of cars only had like the two speakers in the back and such like that. Looking around the side, it looks like it kind of has, yep, so it takes two radio keys. Obviously there's no radio cage with it in this case, and a proprietary connector, which was thankfully included. The connector doesn't look too bad, so that's good. And then we've got the standard DIN antenna socket there. Speaking of the wiring, what did I do with this? Well, what I've done is make a custom loom to how I've done it on mine. As you can see, the positive wire is a socket and the negative wire is a plug. Sorry about the focus there. There you go. Speaking of the power supply I use, it is just a modified computer power supply, just a normal switch mode thing. And I've added this flip switch here, which turns on the normal ATX signal, which I believe is grey and green, if I'm remembering correctly. So that gives me plus 12 and 5 volts, whatever I sort of need there, and even 3.3 if I wanted to, which could be handy for some logic circuits. Not really something I've delved into too much. I mostly just want these connectors, and I've also got an ISO block here, especially since I convert even radios, at least my own, that don't have ISO to ISO, so this connector is pretty useful. I've also got various harnesses there, like a Ford ISO connector, where I convert it so I can power Ford radios and stuff like that. Anyway, you get the idea. So here's the connections here. Obviously I have to be careful that some of them don't touch, but that's absolutely fine. So let's plug the radio in and see what it does, if anything. So then, let's plug in the harness, which goes in like that, I believe. Is that right? Yep. There we go. It is keyed, so nice and easy to do. I've got some speakers above the desk, so if this does anything, you will be able to hear it in the video. So let's flick the power supply on. The fan is running. Now, I don't know if you would have heard it. As I pressed the power button, there was a pop from the speakers. Okay, I've actually turned it off. As you can hear, as I turn the radio up, we can actually hear the static. And in fact, if I plug in my not very good aerial, which only actually picks up AM because I haven't wired it very well, but at least it'll do for testing. You can actually hear it's picking up a station, so we know the amplifier works, it's in stereo. Another way we can check if it's in stereo is by using the fade control. It does indeed fade from right to left, wonderful. Sorry, the balance control, not the fader. This obviously doesn't have a fader because it's not a 4-channel stereo. You know what I mean. So we've established it works, it's able to tune things, and the amplifier works. So next up, obviously, is the tape deck. So when you don't know the condition of a tape deck, you never just put a normal cassette in there, because unthinkable things can happen. You can have some really bad times, because if you put a tape in there, especially one you care about, you know, if the pinch roller's hard or the belt's not very strong or something like that, the tape could get wrapped around the capstan, it could get wrapped around the pinch roller. And if it's got a belt-driven eject mechanism, it may not even eject the tape, so then you've got a tape stuck in there, and it's just a real pain in the butt. So I use this. This is the guts of an older Allsop 3 cleaning cassette I've got, and the reason it's really useful is because if you look in here, you can see the gears are geared up, so this will actually spin at the normal rate of a cassette, which is really good for some of the, especially some of the later stereos where they actually rely on the speed consistency. They have a little strobe disc, and they're actually able to tell if the cassette's moving. And sometimes if they're moving too quickly or too slowly, they'll actually stop or disengage or constantly flick between auto reverse, which is super annoying. And I've just taken all the guts out of it there, because this is all designed to have like replaceable brushes and stuff. So this is a really good test, and you can just sort of establish, does it even move? Okay, so let's pop this in here. It's quite a stiff mechanism, I'm noticing. Okay, you can hear there, it has actually engaged the tape. And it is actually moving by the sounds of it. Yep, it's definitely moving. From what I know about what this tape sounds like, that sounds like a fairly decent speed, so let's try the direction button. It was a little lazy, but it managed to do it. Okay, so let's go to eject the tape. Oh, it actually does come out. So when I first actually tested this unit, because I did test it a little bit off camera, it actually wasn't ejecting tapes. It would sort of bring it up like it was going to eject it, and then it would stay there. And what that was telling me is essentially the mechanism's probably gummed up with old grease, or it may not even be greased at all. Hopefully it's not bent, so fingers crossed nothing's been bent in there. The fact it's now working probably tells me it's grease. Let's try it again. It does make some horrible ticking noises when you put the tape in, suggesting maybe it's meant to be like semi-logic control, but it's not quite doing it because of a belt or something. Let's try again. Yeah, see, it does actually eject this time, so it probably is a lubrication problem. Either way, we've now established it works. But you might be wondering, how do we establish whether the actual tape head works and that that's all connected to the amplifier? I've got an ace up my sleeve, and it's called an aux adapter. Let me explain. So what I've got is this Maxell cassette adapter here. This is one of my favorite cassette adapters, and in my opinion, one of the best that was ever made. It allows you to change which direction you want it to go in, especially if your tape deck's a little bit fussy and sometimes wants it to run in a particular direction, which does happen sometimes. But as you can tell by this roller here, it is designed to run in a particular direction because the pinch roller is meant to sit against that idler tire. Anyway, what this allows me to do is, if you're not familiar with one of these, play music just directly from this little cassette here, as it's essentially the inverse of what records it in the first place. The magnetic signals are created at the head, and it will emulate a cassette tape essentially and mate up with the heads in there, line up with that one, and you'll be able to play some music through it. If you want a good explanation of these, watch Technology Connections. I'm obviously having to oversimplify some stuff because I'm trying to do a repair video here. Anyway, so we put this in here. Let's turn the radio on. It was still on. Yep, okay. Let's put it in there. Now I'm going to hook up my phone and play some music, and we'll see how it sounds. There's the song I'm using if you are interested. As we can hear, it is playing. So what I'm doing now is balancing between the different speakers. That loud button's very effective. So it sounds fantastic. The head is working fantastically. I've got absolutely no problems with that. And besides, I am going to be able to adjust this later in the video if we get it working properly. So it'll be something to look forward to. But for now, we have established that the tape head is working absolutely fine. We do not need to worry about that. Ah, here you go. Now it's doing the thing it was doing when it first arrived. You see it's stuck and making a horrible noise? Yeah, there we go. See, that's what it was doing before, telling me that, yes, there is still an issue with this. So let's start taking this deck apart and have a look at it. Right, power supply off. Always de-energize your devices before working on them so you don't cause any damage. And if you're working on high voltage stuff, you want to de-energize it because it'll probably kill you otherwise. It does fit. It does fit. Right, so they're all the same size. Oh, let's not forget the antenna. So at this point, I don't know how many screws I need to take out. What I have established is they are all the same. So that's very useful. I don't need to worry about separating them out into different piles or making a diagram. They are all the same size. They will all go back where they came from. And they're all the same thread as well, because that can be another trap for people. They don't realize that one's fine thread and one's coarse thread. Thankfully, these are all fine thread. Apologies for the awful camera work. Can you tell it is my first time back after a while? There we go. That's that. Right, so now I should just be able to pry that bit open, except for the fact I've lost the screwdriver that would normally be there. Wonderful. Right, so let's start taking the dials off. Yep, these just pull off, as they often do. I might have to pry at these gently, which I hate doing, because you can scratch them. No, it's going okay. It's going okay. There we go. That was good. These should just pull off as well. No, I'm going to have to gently pry them. Good. Going well so far. Yep, that was fine. They're off now. So now we can gently pry off the plastics. Let's gently pry off the plastics. There's one bit. Now these clips love to play cat and mouse, as I call it, or pass the clips around, which is sometimes you'll unclip one side and then the other side comes out. It's very frustrating. Oh, looks like one of the buttons fell off. It was the direction button, so let's take note of that. So here's our band selectors. They're very, very rattly without that. We've got a bulb there for the tuning dial and a bulb there which lights up this bit. As you can see, because if I hold it in the light, you can see all that lights up green. And if you look on this side, you can see the light pipes. That is one big light pipe there. So it's meant to light up all of this display and all of that there, which you can see has been gently dusted green. So we will need to reinstate that. There's actually another bulb there as well. So we got, what, 3 bulbs to do. Those there are SMD LEDs, so they'll be fine. What else have we got to take apart? Looks like some more screws at the back, possibly. Pretty stout heatsink on this thing. Okay, I think the top panel is going to come off now. Yep, there we go. Oh, we'll get to see the date of this. 5th of November, 1984. Very cool. It looks like, now I could be wrong, I'll need to check this. Let's say we normally have a speed adjustment control there. Is this deck any different? Right, so let's see if that is a speed adjustment hole. As I push this in, I should feel it reach a pot, and I think I do. Yep, that pot does turn. Okay, good. So the speed adjustment pot is in there. It's a horrible one to turn, so I look forward to adjusting that. Right, so let's take a look at this. And while I wouldn't normally do this, it is not my own stereo, so I am going to wear an ESD wristband to prevent me from potentially zapping any of this. I know I probably should wear this more often, but I know I am in a hurry to fix a lot of my own stereos sometimes, so I just don't. And it's annoying being tethered to this thing. Anyway, in this case, I'm actually going to follow the instructions. So, looks like this connector there can be safely pried out. In fact, I can use the speed select screwdriver to help me with that. There we go. That came out no problem. Is that one there? Luckily, because I'm doing a video, I would recommend anybody who takes a tape deck apart, take lots of pictures. Thankfully, I'm taking a video, so I'm essentially taking 60 pictures a second. This looks like another connector to come out. That's going to want a little bit, yeah, that's going to want a little bit of help. God, this looks a little bit delicate on the PCB. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up having to resolder that one. Nope, we're all right. We're all right. Those are actually soldered wires, so I need to keep track of them. Oh, great, my screwdriver has demagnetized itself. One moment while I remagnetize it with my magnetizer. You might be saying, no, don't magnetize a screwdriver. I do have a demagnetizer, so I can demagnetize this once I'm finished, but for now, I need to keep track of these screws because they're very important. Especially if I'm unable to get this out the first time. There's quite a few screws to undo here, although that's not that unusual. Is that all of them? It might be. It still feels a little bit tethered on one side. I think there's one over here. Yes, I can see it. Just behind the motor. Buried in some wires. Wonderful. Pioneer in 1984 apparently taking the Iowa approach of creating a rat's nest. Because that's something Iowa stereos like to do, at least the home stereos. So these are different to the other ones, so I'll keep them together over there. Now we can start lifting this up and taking a look at it. That was very easy to get out. Well done, Pioneer. I didn't need to take the screws out of the bottom, but I've never taken one of these apart, so I didn't know. Apologies for the clock bonging there. It has actually been greased. The grease doesn't seem that bad, interestingly. Yeah, the grease on it doesn't look that bad. Yeah. Okay. So I should be able to take this bottom bit off. Yes, we've got some black screws here. Hopefully this isn't one of these ones where the mechanism desynchronizes, because I hate them, because it often takes a few attempts to resynchronize it afterwards. Hopefully not. No, I don't think so. I didn't see any gears moving just then. Okay. The belt, it's twisted, so I don't know if someone's had this belt off before. Has it perished? I don't see any perishes. No, that's still a nice matte belt without any perishing. So what I say when about matte belts, you know, how do I look at them? I'm looking for a nice clean matte finish. It's probably going to be difficult to tell, but this does actually have a nice matte finish to it. If a belt's shiny or you see any cracking in it, then it needs to go. But thankfully in this case we don't. Oh dear. Oh, this'll be what's causing the issues. Okay, so this repair is probably not going to be possible. Let me explain. Let's have a look at this. This is going to be some bad news for the customer, because I've spotted some pretty fatal problems with this deck. So anybody who follows me on Blue Sky or Instagram knows about the Phillips P6 mechanism. Now, I'm kind of oversimplifying it, because the Phillips P6 mechanism is a whole rabbit hole I plan to go down at some point. But in the 1980s, Phillips designed a mechanism that had cast flywheels with a nylon surround and center support piece. And unfortunately, they've got a habit of cracking all the time. And it looks to me like this Pioneer here is actually suffering its own version. I'm actually seeing cracks not only on the outer side but on the inner bit. Let's see if I can get some light on this situation. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, that's actually cracked on the outer edge. That's split pretty badly. Oh dear. Yeah, that's quite a bad split there. Do you see that? The white one doesn't look cracked. Unfortunately, the other flywheel is quite badly cracked. So I'd never worked on one of these Pioneers before, so I didn't know this was a problem. But yes, it looks like the Pioneer is facing its own version of these problems. You might say to me, that doesn't look that bad. Surely you can stick a belt on it and go. The wow and flutter from this will be pretty bad. I can tell you that for a start, because even when the Phillips P6 flywheels start to crack like this, you might go, oh, it's not that bad. You know, they're still going. They haven't lost their balance yet or anything. But A, it's only a matter of time till they lose their balance, and B, these will cause micro deviations, so little micro flutters in your music, and you'll actually hear it as a the sound wave will actually sound like someone's touching the flywheel every time that passes, so you'll end up with like a little speed dip. And you think how, it spins almost as quickly as I'm demonstrating there, so that's a huge amount of flutter that can cause. This is a real shame, because this is a nice unit, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing I can do about this. I might be able to find another unit that takes these flywheels, but having been through my own stockpile of units, I haven't got anything with a flywheel like this. So it looks like for today's video, we're not going to be able to fix this. Now, I could confer with the customer, and if they only use aux tapes, they can probably pull on the cable like I did, or whatever, but I can't see this mechanism even lasting much longer, because the teeth separation will also start to cause wear. And in fact, if I look at some of the teeth on here, they look a little bit rounded already, like they have been like you see there's flat spots on them, and some of them are round. So I think it has actually started to wear this mechanism down quite substantially. Yeah, you've got very uneven wear in these spots. There's way too much grease on this as well. I don't know if someone's tried to sort this in the past. The problem is with over-greasing a mechanism like this is it gets on the belt, which I did notice there was a little bit on that belt, and it just makes a mess. I'm not against greasing it. This stuff does need greasing, but it has been a little bit over-greased. I mean, maybe this was the factory application, I don't know. Either way, the major issue we have today is these flywheels. Oh, that sucks. Pinch rollers, they'd probably clean up. You can tell they are a little bit perished, so they don't have a lot of life left in them. Sometimes you can clean up these shiny pinch rollers to get them back to their matte finish, and they will grip better, but that's looking quite cracked, so that one doesn't have a lot of life left. It looks like this tape mechanism is of the stepper type, so that head will actually step up and down, whereas if you look at the aux tape, for example, this is quite often how a lot of auto reverse decks are done. They'll have a quad stack of heads, so the top set there is side A, for example, and the bottom set there would be side B. But if you look in here, there's only two sets of heads. There's only a dual set there. So that head will actually step up and down, a bit like an 8-track player, if you've ever seen one of those work. And that's how that does it. We're not going to be able to fix this one today. Certainly not to a degree that they're probably going to be happy with. So I'm going to have to go break the bad news to the client, see where they want to go any further. If there's any more updates, perhaps I'll append onto this video, but this is bad news for them. I'm really... my heart breaks for them. I hate seeing this, because there's no parts. A lot of people will say to me, oh, why don't you just 3D print them? I wouldn't know where to start. And unless people start coming forward offering this sort of service, what am I to do? I don't know where to start. I wouldn't trust myself to make these sort of acute measurements and whatnot. I'd know how to fit them, I'd know how to take them out and fit new ones in, but I wouldn't know where to begin to actually recreate them. Yeah, there's quite a few. See, that chunk is actually about to completely exit. So this one actually very much almost is. I reckon if I pull it, yeah, I can actually separate that edge bit. You see that? Yeah, that's no good. Yeah, that flywheel's no good. That's causing a larger gap every time as well. Oh, this sucks. So after a bit of conferring with the customer, we've decided for now that we would see, maybe in the future, if we could find some new ones of these flywheels, or maybe 3D print them. But for now, just put it back together, get the bulbs replaced so that all that lights up, and we'll just use it as a normal radio for now, which is perfectly normal. I just had a fight with this little C-clip here, and its associated washer underneath. It flew away at one point, which almost always frickin' happens with these things. And I lost it for a while, and it had glued itself to some of the greased components. But thankfully I did manage to find it, so that's back on. A spring also appears to have pinged off of here. I don't even know if it was here to begin with, but it just sort of fell out. But I believe it's from here, because this looks like a spring point, and I can't see any other obvious spring points that look like they need work. So I will pop it back there, because I imagine that's supposed to be a spring-loaded cog anyway, to help hold it either in or out of position, depending on which... in fact, yes, I can see on the other side it is in fact supposed to be spring-loaded, so that is probably that spring. So I'll sort that out. We'll probably clean up some of the excess grease, because like I say, it's over-greased. Like, I don't have an issue with some of this grease because some of this grease is still fairly good, but I just need to clean up the excess because it is everywhere. So let's have a go at cleaning some of that up, putting this all back together, and then we'll see what we can do about the bulbs. Let's get all the stuff I need to clean this up, and we'll get right to it. The belt is in perfectly good shape, to be honest. I will see sort of what tension's like and everything. Not that it matters, obviously, at the moment, but at least I can sort of keep it together. I need to look at the footage I did previously to know the belt run. Although if I had to guess, it's probably around here, through there, around there, and then back there, around that. I imagine it probably snakes around that, as I've just described. So I'll get that done. Like I say, I need to clean the excess grease off, just so it's not, especially in the belt path, you know. The last thing the belt needs is grease on it. There's also a bit of excess detritus from maybe a previous belt or something, which I also noticed on here. It looks like maybe it had a previous gooey belt happen or something. Yeah, there's definitely a bit too much grease in some of these places. So I'll take some of this grease off. We'll sort it out, and I'll do a time lapse of that, and then we'll put it all back together and we'll sort the bulbs. Right, so I'm gonna need a brush. That brush will do, right? Yeah, that's fine. Right. And then I will need some cotton swabs. There we go. There they are. Wonderful. And then probably a cloth to clean the belt. Right, so I've got a cloth here to clean the belt. So I'll put just a dab of IPA on there. There we go. And then I'll run the belt through the passage. Now this cloth probably looks disgusting, but it has actually been washed, if you can believe it. I do regularly wash this cloth. It just is permanently stained because it quite often does a lot of these jobs. Yeah, the belt needed it. You can see that. The belt did need a bit of a clean. Yeah, that belt looks amazing now. Hopefully it's not stretched. It certainly physically it looks fantastic. So hopefully it'll do a good job. Yeah, I'm gonna have to scrub probably at some of this. So I'll put some IPA on a brush and start scrubbing out some of this grease. There we go. I've got as much crud out of there as I can for now. Let's do the others. Oh wow. So this cog is the one that runs all of the mechanism here, look. This is the one that runs auto reverse and eject and things. Yeah, look at that. Crikey. Right, let's run that all the way back. Yeah, see, it actually drives all of this. So yeah, it is actually a belt-driven ejection motor, so it does actually really matter that that belt doesn't slip. Right, so I'm just going to check the belt run. Right, so let's try our best not to cover the belt in grease. And also try not to let it twist, which is always tough with square belts, because they always want to twist in place. Yeah, it just did then. There we go, that's got that. Oh, Christ's sake. Yeah, this happens a lot sometimes, which is quite annoying when you've got very greased cogs right there. I may have to degrease that a bit further. We'll see. If I can get it on as it is now, I shouldn't have to degrease it, and that's what I'd prefer to do. But yeah, it's all going to depend on whether I get this right. Oh, it's twisted on that end. You little bugger. Yeah, it's twisted on that end. And there we go, that's that one. Yeah, there we go. Now we got to try and get it to this end without it twisting. Did I get it? Not quite. Probably need to have another go at that. Yeah, I need to have another go. Let's try again. Nope, still twisted. It's funny because it didn't look twisted at the time, but it sure ended up twisted. There we go, that's got it. Is the belt straight all the way around? Yes, the belt is straight all the way around. In fact, so now I can demonstrate to you how bad this is. You see the belt is sort of bumping every time it goes round. That would manifest as wow and flutter, 100%. That would not be good. And also, I know I said in a previous clip, it was missing here. It was actually a misunderstanding of how it works. There is actually some gears underneath that engage to it. But even so, it does engage onto this gear at some point, and I have noticed some black scratching where it's sort of been stuck in the past. These gears probably will go again once this has all been replaced properly, so I'm not too worried about them. But yeah, we certainly won't be playing a tape for now. This belt actually looks like it's in pretty good shape, so if you did replace these, this would be fine. So let's get all that back together. I don't know if I mentioned it as well, but I have now refitted that spring. Right, this needs a bit of a wipe, so we don't need any excess grease there. I also don't know if this panel's bent. Whoops. Is this panel bent? It is bent, look. Oh, crikey. Oh, it's quite thin, actually. I'm not surprised it's bent then. Yeah, it's really easy to bend. There we go, that's a bit better. Yeah, last thing we want is it touching the flywheels, because it's not meant to. Right, there we go. Okay, so how did this go into place? These normally only go into place one way, so look, I would imagine like this, yeah? Yeah, that's the one. It was the black screws. Now, before I tighten any of them up, I'd like to drive them in just sort of ever so slightly. So not all the way, just to essentially center all of the screw holes up. And then once they're all centered, I will start doing them down one by one. This is especially important if your plate, especially like the Phillips P6, for example, although you don't really have to screw that one, but if you had something like the Phillips P6 and the bearings of the capstan flywheels were actually supported by this, then having that central would be super important. Otherwise you might cause excess drag. But there we go. So our next course of action is to replace these 3 bulbs. Now, I don't have a massive supply of bulbs, and I might not have some that small. I do have a solution if I don't have any that small. I hate doing these as well, because I often have to like re-extend the wires. Pioneer might have offered me enough wire here, I don't know. Let's have a look. So these are just sat on little metal support things. Maybe I have to take that PCB off. Really? Surely not. It should just come out of there, shouldn't it? Oh, it's got one of those ears. So you get this sometimes where they've like metal ears that they've bent into place to hold this circuit board. So I will need to unbend that to make it come out. Yay, I love when that happens. I can't find the set of needle nose pliers that I need, but this should do the job. Right, so that should allow me to pull that board proud. No? No, apparently not. Okay, it might at least allow me to pull this out. No, it won't even let me do that. What is your problem? And that PCB is soldered as well, I think. Or is it edge connector? Is it soldered or edge connector? Like, what are you? Oh, it is actually soldered. Oh, that sucks. How the heck am I going to get that out then? I haven't come across one like this before. They normally just pull off, but this is actually around a whole thing. This is awful, actually. I'm not a big fan of this. It's definitely one of the worst bulb replacements I've done. Hopefully I can just push the bulb out of the rubber bit instead. I may have to... Right, let's put... I nearly forgot the ESD strap. Let's put that back on. Try and handle this properly. I'm going to take the board out and see if that helps. So let's get the board out of the shell. There we go. Oh, wow. What does that mean? I guess this has been worked on before. Something's been written in there. Okay. I guess we know for sure now. Right. So you need to get that wire out of there. It seems to be wrapped around a power transistor for some reason. There we go. Wow, that is a tiny, teeny bulb. Goodness, I don't know if I've got any that size. That could be very fun to figure out. They're often a bit of a pain, because I have bulbs that are a lot bigger than this normally. I might have some used ones, though, that might work. Yeah, that's definitely blown. I mean, these are 40 years old, so that's not overly surprising that it's blown. It does actually have enough spare wire that I probably won't need to rewire it, so that makes me feel a little bit better. We'll see. I don't think the other one's going to be that case, though, and I don't think that one in the middle is going to be that case either. Yay! I'm going to have to take the tuning panel bit off the front to do that one. So, yeah. But at least we've got access to it. I'll have a look in my bulb box and see what we've got. Okay, so the bulbs have arrived. They're right here. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing gloves. It's to try not to put fingerprints on the bulbs, to try and reduce the likelihood of hotspots, which is a phenomenon. If you don't know, your hand oils can actually get on the glass, and if they stay on the glass uncleaned, you can actually end up with hotspots, which can prematurely kill the bulb. So I'm trying to take all the precautions I can to make sure this lasts as long as possible. Anyway, my soldering iron's heating up over here. So let's try and get into this. Also, before I put any of these in, I probably should make sure they work, make sure we haven't got any duds, and remove all the dead ones that will end up confusing me. There we go. These are slightly longer than the originals, but they should be the right diameter, so that's good at least. Right, let's spread those out. Right. Try not to touch these together. Oh, is the radio not on? There we go. You can see that bulb's working. Wonderful. So that one's good. What about this one? Yeah, that one's okay. And this one? Oh no, this one's actually not working. Really? Or did I just miss the connections? Oh no, there you go. Yeah, that's working fine. Good, so we haven't got any duds. That's great news. Let's turn this off. Unplug that. And right, we need to work out the best way to do this. So, because I also need to sort of bear in mind that there will be a wire run. What I tend to do with these is get a little bit of shrink tubing to turn the wires on here, which are essentially just bare straight out of the glass of the bulb, into insulated wires. So for that, I'm going to cut up some heat shrink tubing. So now we're going to have a look inside my very broken box of shrink tubing here, but that doesn't affect the shrink tubes themselves, so that's fine. So we want to get the smallest size possible, which appears to be the black ones. We're not going to use the full length because that's obviously longer than even the bulb. We're going to cut this sort of into little quarters, if you will. That might still be a little bit too long. Yeah, that's probably still a bit too long. In fact, I can probably make 2 out of that one. There we go, that's a bit more like it. Because obviously these don't need to be like miles long, because I'm not having to make up that much extra cable. So I'm not too worried. Yeah, if I cut the stems off of that now, I should be able to use what's there. Does this shrink tubing fit over the wiring all right? I might have to go a size up. No, that actually fits pretty good. Okay. That's all right then. Don't have to worry about that. Right. Oh crap, I need the I need to put the shrink tubing back on the bulb because I need to know how much to cut. Okay. So you want to cut roughly, I guess around there. There we go, that's that cut. I will just grab the other one to make sure, just in case there was a length differential between the two of them. No, it's about right, because I want the wires to go inside there, so I don't mind the little bit sticking out, because the wires will be going in there. I might actually put 2 shrink tubing tubes on here to make sure that this is adequately covered afterwards. So I'll grab this one, cut it in half, there we go. Yeah, and that will at least double. In fact, if I go a size up, it will then sleeve over what's there, so that'll be a good idea. And this time I can cut these into large halves because they're going to be going over the end of it, so that's fine. These will be like the finishing ones, if you will. Right. So then we put the black ones on, because those will be the ones that do the initial thing, and they'll stop the ones at the end of the bulb from touching as well, because the conductors on the bulb can touch if they're not insulated. If you look at the end here, it's probably not going to focus, but there is very little room between the 2 conductors, so you do have to be super careful, but that's why we're doing it this way. And as you can see, they're already slotting inside the yellow ones, so especially once they've shrunk, they'll fit perfectly, so that's not an issue. Right. My best course of action now is probably to put the bulb on a set of these helpful hands. You might be wondering, you know, don't stick a bulb into something that grips, but these don't grip that hard actually. They're not too bad. Right, so what we need to do is apply some flux to both of them to help the solder flow. So I'll stick some flux on the end of there. What the flux does is it's acid based, so it'll help etch off any corrosion, and will also act as a sort of heat transferring liquid to help the solder just make a nice solid connection. I am somewhat oversimplifying, but for underlying purposes that is pretty much what flux does if you've never used flux before. I know all the plumbers and fellow electricians will be like, yeah, I know what flux is. And you know, that's cool. That's not a lot of solder on there, but that's okay. Obviously, you don't have to worry about polarity because it's a bulb. If it was an LED, we'd have to worry. But because it's a bulb, we don't. You might be wondering why I'm joining them straight. That's to try to prevent any of the sticking out you can sometimes get. Is that a good connection? It's not my cleanest join, but it does look like it's made a good contact. That looks to have made a decent enough connection. It's by far not my tidiest work, but it will work. Hopefully these still slot over them okay. Yep, they do. Wonderful. They'll need to, because these will also help mitigate any risks of the ends coming out. Right, I want to make sure these are nice and close to the end. And then we grab a lighter. This is going to be super awkward because this is very tiny. Oh, now I want to squish them together, and that will help them squish up. There we go. Wonderful stuff. Yep. Now we put the yellow ones on just to finish the job. Oh, crikey, come on. There we go. That there is one bulb. So in theory, if I turn this on now, we should have one functional bulb with any luck. And there you go. The bulb is working. Good stuff. So now we've got to get it inside the little rubber bit that I demonstrated, which is super difficult, especially given where this one is. Oh, this is going to be hell, isn't it? Because I've got to like bend it and like, ugh. Well, if I put it in from this side first, maybe we'll be all right. I'm glad I chose the right diameter. A lot of the time I end up working with the wrong diameter, and then trying to get them inside the rubber sleeving is a nightmare. It might be a nightmare wearing gloves, to be completely honest. I think I've got it. Right, one way to know will be to power this on and see if we've got a nice green glow. I'll try and turn the stereo around so that you can see it. Oh wow, I'm really fumbling with this connector here. Why is that? There we go. Right. So I'll try and turn it around. There we go. And lo and behold, we have a nice green light. Good stuff. So our next step is to run the wiring around, which is going to be a nightmare, because this has to make some very horrific bends to actually go back in. There we go. I did just have to do quite a nasty bend there, so I want to make sure this does still work. And that nothing's happened to the connections. Oh my god, this is such a hard harness to plug in. Yeah, it's still okay. It still lights up. All is well. Wow, so little space. Yeah, I forgot. It's actually got a plastic jacket, which might come in handy. There we go. Just to sort of keep the wires from being stupid. Try and run it around these components, sort of how it was when it was new. There we go. That's one. So that'll be lighting up the direction indicator, if I remember correctly. Right. So one of the next difficult ones is the one here on the tuning dial, because it looks like I've got to take this plate off. So that'll be fun. I apologise if you can't see much of what I'm doing here. It's not the easiest to get angles of, I'm afraid, especially with the soldering iron there now, so I do apologise. Okay, I've got a slightly better angle here. God, that was in there with a vengeance. I want to keep these screws aside, because they may well be specific to this. You could tell these have not been out since 1984. Now I need to be very careful with this, because I need to slot the little dial indicator off of this without breaking it. And there we go, that seems to have done it. Yep, there we go. And that has revealed the little bulb. And luckily this one's not like wedged into a thing I can't take out, so I can actually take the rubber sleeving off of this bit. I do need to get it past the tuning wire though. There we go, there is not a lot of extra cable on that one. This one's going to be a nightmare. Goodness. But yeah, at least this time I was actually able to get the rubber cover off. Right, what I probably want to do is, yeah, take this out of here so that I've got a bit more room to work with it. Now what I did last time to guarantee I had enough space was I undid the factory heat shrinking and then just snapped the connector off, because these bulbs are junk anyway, you know, I can't reuse them. If I could reuse them, I would be reusing them already, so we're able to sort of just take that out and do something with it. So I'm going to try and do that again. I tell you what, I often don't film what I'm doing, and I've made so many mistakes. Like, I nearly burnt myself with a soldering iron. My hands are all shaky because, you know, I'm nervous about people watching me, and I'm obviously having to make space for the camera and all sorts of stuff. I mean, hopefully the more I do it, the more comfortable I'll get, but it's just really difficult at the moment. So if you are enjoying this video, please let me know, you know, leave a like or whatever. It just helps me know that I'm doing something right, you know, because it is tough, you know. I'm someone with autism and ADHD, so even just being here making this video is me battling my brain saying, oh, you don't want to do this, you don't need to do this, just be lazy and do nothing. And that's me going, no, I want to do this though, because people have asked for it. Right, hopefully, can I snap it now? Because this wiring's not very tough on the bulb, so it's quite easy to snap. There we go. That's snapped off nice and cleanly. Good stuff. So, we've now got a bit of room for the bulb. As we know, we're able to make a bit of extra wire out of the bulb's conductors. So I'm not too worried about the fact that this wire is super short already, because we are going to be making it ever so slightly longer. There's one bit. And there's the second bit. So there's the wiring exposed. So we want to get our conductors again. Right, and start cutting out the appropriate amounts for what we need. So what's that? That and that probably. We'll make them a tiny bit longer this time because they need to be. That other piece of heat shrink tubing is never to be seen again, as it's just flown away. I'm sure I'll find it when I'm tidying up later. It's not that essential though. Yeah, so I am actually going to leave all that. I am actually going to leave the whole conductor on this bulb to make sure that we've got more than ample room. Okay, so now I want another yellow one. So just like last time, I'm going to chop this straight in half so we've got maximum length available to us. And just slot that down there. The reason I'm slotting them so far away is because when you're soldering the wires, just the heat being conducted by the wire can actually prematurely shrink these when you're not ready. And that sucks, because then you have to take it all off and do it again. So that's why I'm putting them super far away until the bulb's soldered on, because then I know that by then I can cool the wires down and actually shrink it when I want to shrink it, if that makes sense. Right, so again, separate these conductors. Pop the bulb in the helpful hands. There we go. Now we can solder on the end. Again, flux, super required. Help us do a good job. There we go. You can see that dripping on that nicely. Bit of flux on there. I mean, that's another nice thing about wearing gloves, actually, because getting this flux stuff on your skin's nasty, because it's super sticky and stuff, because obviously it's designed to be sticky to help it stay where you put it. It's just not very nice stuff. I mean, look at the warnings on it. It's not nice, so handle with care. Don't ask me how I know. Try and get some dabs of solder. I need to clean that up a little bit better. There we go. Try and get a little dab of solder on these wires to hopefully make them stick to where they need to go. I hate soldering little conductors like this because they're just super hard work. I've also got to be super careful of the plastic buttons below because they can also end up with solder on them, and that can potentially make them sad if it manages to melt them. So you do have to be careful. Luckily this stuff doesn't need much solder, A, because there's not much current going on, and B, the bulbs don't get anywhere near hot enough, and C, they shouldn't, in theory, be under any mechanical stress. So you just want a nice solid connection. It doesn't necessarily overly matter about the quality. Obviously it matters that it's solid, as I say, but it doesn't necessarily matter if it's like the best soldering job you've ever done in your life. For some reason, this doesn't seem to be taking the solder very well. Not sure why that is. It did the first time. That's not good. Because obviously I don't want to overheat the bulb either, because if I overheat the bulb I could crack it, and I've only bought 3 of them because These were quite expensive from the UK to get them shipped quickly. It was £10 for all 3 bulbs. And obviously from China you can get them way cheaper than that. I don't know if the quality is the same, of course, but I did buy a batch of ones from China before and they were fine, so I can't imagine they're really any different. But, you know, we're going to need some more flux. I think we might need, yeah, we need some flux. It's no good, we need some more flux. I think everything's just got a bit pitted while I've been trying to get it going. So. Try again. What I need to do is tin the iron so that there's a blob of solder just sat there waiting to go. Right, I'll try that. Oof, that's not the cleanest join. But at this point we just need a join. Oh, yep, yep. There we go. That wasn't bad actually in the end, once they melted together. Yeah, that's not a bad join. It doesn't even look like there's really many gaps in it. Good. Because sometimes, you know, if you're joining them end to end, you can end up with a little bit of what I like to call seesawing, where, you know, sometimes the little end can have a gap, but this is almost completely solid, so this is actually one of the slightly better jobs I've just done. So that's cool. I do need to bring the iron closer, because I noticed that wire was under an awful lot of tension, so that was probably not helping. Right, again, lots and lots of flux. Never be afraid to use lots of flux, because there's no such thing as too much. I mean, granted, it can make cleanup a bit more difficult if you're doing PCB work, but it still makes your life a bajillion times easier, so it's not necessarily a shameful thing to not have... it's not necessarily a shameful thing to have loads and loads of flux. Did that go well? Not bad, actually, yeah, I'll go with that. I'll take that. Obviously, before I go too far, let's, like before, make sure it actually works. It would help if I plugged the stereo in. Wonderful, it works. Cool, so we know that we can quite happily put the heat shrink tubing where it belongs. Get all that lined up. And then we can put it inside the rubber collar and hopefully be able to put it back on the stereo. There we go, it is now inside the rubber collar. Again, let's double check that it works. You might be wondering why I keep unplugging this. It's because the power supply is grounded, I'm worried sometimes about ground loop stuff happening between the soldering iron and whatnot, so it's just an extra precaution, and just in case there's residual power inside the power supply. There you go. Nice little green light. Good stuff. Right, so now we have to feed the little bulb and its carrier underneath the indicator string. There we go. And then there's a little ear here that it sits on. I'll try and get a close-up picture at some point. But yeah, there's a little ear there that slots in. There we go, that's in. I want to push that down so it stays out of the way. It probably wants to, yeah, it wants to naturally go that way, so we'll let it go that way. Push that down. I mean, it'll certainly be the brightest they've been in 40 years, so, you know, that's still a bonus. And again, because I'm paranoid, let's make sure that after I put it in there, it still works. I always like to check my work as I'm going along, because you never know. If there's any problems, now's the time to rectify it. And it's working just fine. Good. Okay. And now on to the last bulb, which again has a little channel that we need to pull it out of, although this one pulls forward, so that's a bit easier. What I might do is chop this off and add a little bit of extra wiring of my own, and then I can just sort of tuck it back in there when I'm done. I do have some choice of wires here that I can use, so I think I'm going to do that. And because there's barely any room to get to that, I am just going to chop it outright, especially because I'm going to be extending it anyway. There we go. And that just pulls off of there. Goodness. Look how little wire I've got to work with. Oh, this is going to be hell. This is going to be absolute hell. I'm going to use this wiring. This is just stuff that's from my box. It's probably from either a speaker system or a small little power supply. Either way, it's nice thin wiring and it's more than ample for the 70 milliamps that this will consume. It is that sort of stuck together wiring though, like speaker wiring, so I do need to try and carefully separate it first without ruining the sheathing. The nice thing about this is because it's designed for some kind of application like either speaker wire or power wire, it does actually have like polarity markings on it. Like I say, not that it matters in this case necessarily, but it's just nice if it does matter. Like say if you're fitting LEDs, you'd want to know which is positive and negative. Well, this would allow you because one's striped and one isn't. Trying to get to this to actually get the wiring off could be fun. Whoops. Because I've also got to be careful that it doesn't end up skinning the wire on the actual chassis. There we go, we got one. God, this is set to be a nightmare. There we go. Don't think I managed to skin any of it on the chassis. No, we're okay. There's a little bit of the nick on the sheathing, but it hasn't gone through, so that's okay. I can live with that. I can absolutely live with that. Especially at the voltage it's running at. It's not like if that was like 1,000 volts or something, then yeah, you'd throw it away. But because it's only 12 volts, a tiny little bit of scuffing on the sheathing is literally a non-event. Hooray, this loom is working. Right, so now we can work out how long it needs to be. Obviously it does not need to be this long by any stretch of the imagination. And obviously I don't want to end up with too much wire back here because I'm going to have a lot of wire to tuck out the way if I do. There's already quite a lot just from what I've extended here, so, you know, let's be realistic. Right, that's still loads, but I am trying to give myself a bit of a buffer. Because bear in mind, I have got to put some heat shrink tubing on this. So I need a buffer. Otherwise, if I don't get it back far enough, as I mentioned earlier, the heat shrink is just going to prematurely melt and then what's the point? Let's make sure that what I've just done actually works. And it does. Good stuff. Right, next step, put it inside the rubber container. And then push it inside of where it needs to go. I got to spend a million bajillion years trying to run all of this excess cable that I've just done. There we go. Let's just make sure that this still works. And then we've got a nice green glow from that corner. And lo and behold, we do. 3 green lights. Good stuff. So here we go then. The wiring's in there, and one of my biggest concerns is I didn't want the tuning strand to rub through the wire. I know from this perspective it looks pretty close, but trust me, it's not. It's quite far away, and it shouldn't affect the operation of that band selector either. No, it doesn't. It goes past it just fine. So that's good news. So there we go. That's in, and that's what it looks like at the front. All nice and neatly back into place. Hey, the radio's back together. All the screws are in. Now, I was originally second-guessing myself because I found out there was a screw missing from here. And I was like, oh no, I've lost the screw. But it turns out it just never had it. So I did the nice thing, and I had one in the collection that fit. So I added it for the customer, just for a nice bit of peace of mind. But this is the magic moment, because the radio is now fully back together. And we can see what it looks like lit up. I was so sad when I discovered that screw was lost. I was like, oh no, I've really screwed this up for the customer. But thankfully, not the case. Anyway, we are here. There's actually one more thing I want to do because this just comes out. These aren't very well attached, so I might put a little blob of glue in there just because they're liable to fall out when they're being operated. Just a light amount of glue, so it means if they need to be pulled off in the future, they can be. Look at this. This looks fantastic now. yeah, the direction stuff's all lit up, the tuning dial's all lit up. You can see that that's lighting up nicely. You can move it along. That's fantastic. Let's plug the aerial in for one last little play with it. Where's the aerial connector gone? There it is.
Fine details at the level we're at, I suppose. Yeah, and it's holding your nerve on a free kick to say, I think I know where they're going to go. I'm waiting for them to go.
There you go. Goodness gracious, that was definitely one of the most difficult repairs I've done for a little while. Bulb repairs are always one of those sort of funny ones because, you know, they're so fiddly, and like you've seen there, sometimes you've got to extend the cables because they just don't give you quite enough because it was all assembled in a sort of process. And if you don't want to disassemble everything, because that would have even required some desoldering of some parts, I didn't want to do that, especially when the radio works fine. Why ruin it like that? So I just added some extensions, and yeah, it's fantastic now. So I'm really, really pleased with that. I'm so glad we managed to sort that out. So I hope you enjoyed this process. It was probably going to be a long video. No idea how I'm going to edit this at the moment, but hopefully you found this super interesting. As I say, first time I've ever recorded a radio repair. It was definitely difficult because I sort of had to keep in mind with the camera and stuff. I'm just not used to doing this with an audience. Like, I always take pictures to blog them on like Blue Sky and Instagram and Twitter back when I had that and stuff. But I've never done a video, never ever done a video like this where I've actually gone through the entire process like I did with this one. So this was all like completely new territory for me. But that's enough rambling. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully the customer's going to be super happy with this. And before you ask me, I'm not doing this on a large scale yet. I mean, you saw how long this took me. I need to do some optimizations. I just don't have the time all the time. In fact, this was waiting for a handful of weeks before I even got round to it. Thankfully, the customer was understanding. So that's good. But yeah, I'm not doing this on a big scale yet. Maybe one day I'd like to, but like I say, you've seen the labor and stuff involved and how, you know, troubleshooting and stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, they can be a lot more broken than this one. Like, I was dreading this one when the customer said it didn't turn on, because I just thought, oh, it's going to have some kind of chip that I can't replace or something like that. So, yeah, but thankfully not the case. It does seem to just work, and now it lights up beautifully and it looks fantastic with that green illumination. So yeah, first time doing radio repairs. Not doing them widespread yet, so please don't ask yet. I'm just doing it to people that I know and people that I trust are going to be okay with the fact it takes a while at the moment and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you are okay with all those things, then get in touch with me on Blue Sky and stuff like that. The reason I prefer doing it on Blue Sky is I know you could email me. There is actually a channel email thing, but you know, it's just easier if I can actually talk to people I know at the moment. So if you come up to me and we have a good chat, you know, at shows or whatever, and you understand that, you know, this process takes a little while, then yeah, absolutely. I even thought of offering a mobile repair service for radios while I was at shows, where I actually had a bench out trying to do it, but we'll see. That's like way in the future. I don't know if that's going to be a reality yet, but we'll see. Anyway, enough rambling. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.